For the week of October 2nd, for Your Ears Only, I'm David Alpern.
I'm Eddie Robinson.
The proxy connection to the ISI, the Haqqanis working across border, killing our people, killing Afghans, has to stop.
If there is any information against Haqqani network, if they are operating any part of the country, please give us information. Our forces, my forces, are quite capable of handling them.
It's important to realize that while it's not always easy, the United States and Pakistan have vital strategic interests that converge in the fight against terrorism.
Before it was overshadowed by the drone strike that killed al-Qaeda cleric Anwar al-Awlaki and two top comrades in Yemen, the major terror news last week was a new low point in relations with nuclear-armed Pakistan over its ties to attacks on U.S. and allied forces across the border in Afghanistan, a threat that continues to shadow Washington's plan to stabilize and exit that country after more than 10 years of bloody conflict. Admiral Mike Mullen, retiring chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, leveled the charge on Capitol Hill. Pakistani Interior Minister Rahman Malik vigorously denied it, and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was left to salvage the situation because Pakistan, for now, also remains vital to U.S. operations in the area.
To consider the two faces of Pakistan, plus the tactical and legal fallout from that drone strike in Yemen, for Your Ears Only, we're joined again by retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton, now president of Cedric Leighton Associates, a strategic risk and management consultancy. Welcome back to our program.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let's start with the drone strike in Yemen. Besides Awlaki, al-Qaeda's American-born propaganda and recruiting star, it killed Samir Khan, an American who edited al-Qaeda's magazine Inspire, and possibly also Ibrahim al-Asiri, the master bomb maker linked to that infamous 2009 underwear airline bombing attempt over Detroit. How crippling is such a trifecta?
Certainly for al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, it is a huge blow. You know, we always look at terrorist organizations as being kind of amorphous organizations, Hydra-like monsters, and to some extent that's true. However, in this particular case, when you take out three of the top and most influential leaders of an organization such as that is a huge blow to it, and it really portends, some grave problems for their survival, quite frankly.
Even some who applaud last week's drone strike admit it marks a slippery slope of assassination of U.S. citizens without legal charges or trial. Shouldn't that cause concern?
Well, absolutely, and that's why we have to have a good debate about that particular topic. The big issue here is having the laws and the way we conduct ourselves, both in a military sense as well as in a diplomatic sense, really catch up with the technical reality of what's going on in a war. And in this particular moment in time, what you have is a technical capability, the capability using drones and precise intelligence that can actually go after individuals, and quite frankly, our legal structure as well as international legal structures have not caught up with that technical fact.
There's a debate within the administration about relying even more on drone strikes to kill rank-and-file Islamist fighters around the world, as well as top leaders, although more civilian casualties may also be likely. What's your view?
Well, the way I look at it is the reason drones were developed was actually, ironically, to save lives. And now what I mean by that is, first let's take our side. Drones allow us to do things that otherwise would require an intensive commitment of troops on the ground. And we don't need to have that same level of commitment like, for example, we had in Vietnam or World War II, because the drones take over those missions. We are also far more precise. If we did something like, let's say, the bombing of Tokyo, the firebombing of Tokyo in World War II, or the bombing of Dresden in Germany in World War II, that would be unacceptable by modern standards. But at the time, that was considered part of the price of war. So you go to the time that we're in right now, and it would be one of those areas where you really have to look at what is most likely to happen, and based on the technology that we have, and assuming that we continue to have the degree and the precision of the intelligence information that we often have, not always have, in these particular cases, we are probably less likely to have increased numbers of civilian casualties. They will still happen, but they are far less likely than they used to be, and that, in essence, is why the drones are an attractive policy and military option at the moment.
Could a combination of increased drone strikes and special operations like the one that eliminated Osama bin Laden keep enough pressure on the Taliban to permit continued withdrawal of most U.S. forces from Afghanistan?
Depends on our strategic goal in Afghanistan. If we wanted to kind of be in a not really a status quo ante-type environment, but have a weak central government as it currently does, a very nascent effort to have some elections. I won't say democratic, but at least to have some degree of popular representation. And if that's as far as we want to go with it, then we may be able to do that. And let the drones, in essence, take over the targeting of key and influential targets. However, if we want to further influence Afghanistan and ensure a continued presence in order to keep an eye on Pakistan on the eastern side of Afghanistan and Iran on the western side of Afghanistan, then it may not be the only policy option that will work, and in fact, it may be something that will be detrimental to our long-term interests. I think an over-reliance of drones could be somewhat difficult, in the long term for our diplomatic and military interests in the region.
Some say that reduction of U.S. forces in Afghanistan could permit those that remain to be supplied and supported without going through the choke points that Pakistan controls. Is there any real alternative to working through and with Pakistan?
Well, there's a little bit of an alternative, and what the people that say that are looking at is the countries that border Pakistan on the north. And now that, of course, they're former Soviet republics, and of course that means a long logistical train that goes through Russia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and ends up then in Afghanistan. It's a very long, very expensive route.
What would you advise is the best U.S. policy now for dealing with Pakistan?
I think it's very important for us to realize that Pakistan is taking a look at the world from a very different lens, and their main threat, as they see it, is India. And how does that relate to Afghanistan? Well, the issue there is, in Pakistan's view, a lot of elements in Afghanistan are actually pro-Indian. So their big fear is that the Afghans and the Indians will team up on the same side and go after Pakistan. Personally, I think that scenario is a bit far-fetched, but that is the kind of mindset that is driving Pakistani policy. So it becomes very important for us to realize that as far as going forward is concerned, I think we have to be firm with Pakistan. I think we have to say, in essence, a variation of the either you're for us or you're against us theme from the previous administration. But what you have to also look at is that there has to be a constructive way to get them to reform their way of dealing with things in Afghanistan and to assure them of their security as we go forward with our desire to withdraw from Afghanistan.
Retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton is now president of Cedric Leighton Associates, a strategic risk and management consultancy.
Quote from the news, "They will do me a favor if their opinion was heard, and I was relieved of this duty." That was Libya's acting Prime Minister Mahmoud Jibril responding to critics as Libya's transitional government scrambles to take power.
Next, Republicans paralyzed and Obama's new strategy for your ears only.